So hi everyone, today in this video I'm gonna develop a lot more of pieces that we have been talking about, and this obviously with always the objective of trying to you to become a bit more logical and so try to build a more type of beneficial type of outcomes that can comes with your decision making. And obviously for that you need decision making that has to be clear, that has not to suffer with bees. And so in order to not suffer with bees, you have to look in what are the type of bees that exist, how you can suffer about them, and how to overcome it. And that's so what's going to be the structure of this video. Focus first in the bees that we're going to talk, trying to understand what are the examples in real life that can make it to you a bit more clear about how these bees can be something that's is a make prejudice to you, and when you're more susceptible and how to overcome it. Today's video we're going to talk about the gambler's fallacy or Monte Carlo fallacy. What is it? Gambler's fallacy is the mistaken belief that if an event occurs more frequently than normal during a given period, it will happen less frequently in the future, or vice versa. In essence, these people think that past random events somehow influence the future outcomes. Is the main type of belief that we have, even when each event is independent. So when we talk about an event being independent, we're saying that it doesn't suffer with what were the consequences of past type of events. So basically, is that in a coin you have so two faces, then the probability of each one in a specific series that you so take and see what's going to be the face that's going to be up, you're going to say that in a event in a series you're going to have 50% of one face, 50% of the other face. But imagine that you do this and you see that you have seen that a face appears 70% and the other one appears 30%. What you could think? Who is the event? It's the probabilities that are expected. What is normal? Tends to be 50-50. So certainly in the past or the posterior type of the flips that I'm gonna see it, I'm 100% that I'm gonna certainly see more the face that just appeared 30% of the cases and less so the face that appears 70%. But the reality is that it's not a take that I can do, because in reality events are independent. So not just because the flip that I'm gonna do after, it doesn't have any type of interference in what was the prior type of consequence of my actions, or in that case of this example was the flip of the coins that had happened prior. And so I'm not assumed that the universe will so make it to balance as the probability that should be happening. Not, it doesn't have any type of connection between what happened in the past and what's going to happen in the future. And obviously something that happens if we're talking about events that are independent. In real life, we have a lot of scenarios that events are not independent, and outcomes of the prior type of actions they will influence posterior type of consequence of our actions. But we have certain scenarios that's something that's not true, and we have to identify what tends to be these scenarios, and people sometimes get addicted to them. First example, casino games. It's one of the most important to to understand so how this type of fallacy can be something that makes you prone to commit type of bad habits. And the proper name, gambler's fallacy, is already really good in terms of being illustrative of when so is the environment that people most suffer with that type of beast. That is the people that plays casino games. In roulette, sometimes after several consecutive spins landing on black, some players might bet on red, believing that red is due to occur despite each spin being independent. So it's not because the black has happened 8 times and the red has happened just 2, that means then the next one red has a higher probability to happen more than red. Not just gonna happen 50%, 50 to 50, depending as well. So what's like the what's like how is built so the game. But he mentioned that is 50-50%. So you have the 50, imagine that you have 50 houses that is going to be red, 50 other ones that places that are black, And just not because, as happened a lot of blacks, that means that in X we have like a change in the likelihood of each scenario. But we tend to fall in these fallacies, even understanding, and you have to understand that events are independent, and so they're not they're not gonna get influenced by the past. Other type of things, coin tosses. If you flip a coin and get heads multiple times in a row, you might expect tails to appear next, even though the chance remains 50 for 50 for each toss. Lottery draws as well. People tend to believe as well that the number that hasn't been drawn in a while is more likely to be drawn next, ignoring the randomness of each draw. So each draw is dependent, it's not just gonna get influenced unless it exists like a hand that manipulates it, which doesn't happen because we assume that events are independent. So when you're more susceptible in random scenarios, whenever outcomes are truly independent, they have to be independent, like in games of chance or coin flips. As I said, mainly the examples out of these games that already have like specific likelihoods that don't change. Even we assume emotionally and bets that some things can be and can have like a different likelihood just because of past events. But if you look for environment, we have to understand that something that it's difficult to achieve independent type of events, as I said previously. So in world life, things that happened in the past they tend to have contribute to things that can happen in the future. But where is so the fallacy is that sometimes you cannot like a change in the way that we perceive the things, depending the scenario that I'm present. So perceptions about what happens in real world, that things that comes prior have influence what will happen next. What I have to understand is that I have to change the mental model. Then now that I'm going to do a game with likelihoods, with independent events, as a coin tosses, as lotteries, as casino games, I have to get this perspective. Then what happened past doesn't change the what will happen now. What just think I have to happen now is that I have to understand the likelihood of the things without having encountered something has happened more or less in the past. Not likelihoods doesn't change in these specific games, and so you have to shift your perception to real life type of things that happens in our environment and this type of scenarios of game, and then not so getting addicted by assuming that you're gonna try to bet in something that you have wrong assumptions, because as I said, independent events not depending of things that happened in the past. So how to overcome it? Understanding independence, educate yourself on probability. So learning basic probability principles can help you recognize the outcomes in the independent type of events remain constant. Analyze logical, so and this analyze logical will help you to make this shift to the type of examples in real life, for example in diet, things that I have done in the past. If I have like had a good night of sleep, if I have exercised, gonna influence probably. So how much I'm prone now today to feeling good, eating something more type of healthy, not is proven by science that if you have a bad night you have more probability to get health or diet and eating more junk foods. It's something that's proven. So we have to analyze logically what's the scenario that you're present, if you're dealing with independent events or not, and so having, and you now depending what's your scenario, you have so to have in count or not things that had happened in the past, so to understand what's going to be your next action. So stay mindful in high emotion situations too, because as any other type of beast that we suffer, we tend to suffer more, we tend to feel, and we tend to have more biz when we have like high type of emotions around the situation. So you have to understand that your takeaway that you have to get from this video is you have to understand the shift that you have to do in some situation. Not something that is just applied for the gambler's fallacy. It's a thing a bit more theoretically, but you have to understand as well in your real world when you're dealing and when you are present in certain specific environments, you have to understand the rules on that to have prosperity. So what's basically you have to do, what's the skill that you have to develop to not so fall in this type of things, of not getting ability to adapt in new scenarios, is having ability to adopt, learning, adaptability, and so having plasticity to understand that the things that your environment requires to you in order to have prosperity in different scenarios are different, and so being more complete. And I expect so this video helps you to create motivation to you to learn more about whatever is the scenarios is that you want to have prosperity. So see you in the next one, and see the other videos to develop as well strategies to face the other type of business that we tend to face.